I think everybody's on the same page and understands that this is going to be a long play for, the all of the above thought of energy development
Yeah.
in the state of Texas and across the country, obviously. Um, but with that, what do we see and what are your thoughts on maybe the low hanging fruit? What are some of the projects that are the most ripe for development, and to get to a more full scale, more high scale production of energy development on the alternative side?
Your biggest challenge is always going to be proof of concept. And so certainly I'm the most encouraged and interested the most in carbon storage. That's probably going to be the longest one because you really don't have an industrial size proof of concept yet. And with the revitalization of Petronova down in Fort Bend County, a lot of the projects that are being talked about down in Bayou Bend, as soon as you have one up and operational that people can actually see, I think you're going to see the momentum pick up tremendously. And so to that point, at some point, you're going to see a lot of investor dollars start to triculate back to, I think, oil and gas, to be honest with you, just because you can see it and it's working. I think there's a real future for hydrocarbons, despite a lot of the political and media narrative. People like to put money into and regulate things that they can actually see. And so much of the new projected energy transition industries, they're still going to be relying upon technology that hasn't been refined yet. To that point, I personally am encouraged about lithium because DLE is not as far removed from a commercial application, maybe as some of the other things. And to use your point, low hanging fruit, I think the branches are a little bit lower down the tree. The timetable is a little bit shorter, and maybe some of the CapEx expenditures that are required is a little lower. And we see advancement not necessarily predicated upon the EV market so much as large scale battery storage and lithium batteries and cell phones and computers seem to be a pretty stable market. One I don't think anybody disagrees is going to continue to advance. Whether or not carbon emission reduction maintains itself over the next 5 to 10 years is a little bit more questionable because so much of it is based on the tax credits that were elevated under the IRA.
Exactly.
And so until that hesitancy has been alleviated, I think the path of least resistance will probably fall more into the lithium extraction. We're actually seeing dirt moved in Exxon in Arkansas and Northeast Texas. So the best answer is that which is the closest to proof of concept, because we as humans like to see things. And so I think you'll probably see the next 2 or 3 years, you have solar and wind and oil and gas. These industries have been fairly well proven, albeit in need of technological advances. But between carbon storage and lithium, which I think are probably your gold and silver medal transition topics in Texas, I'm more confident that live faster pace just because of the availability of tangibility of seeing how it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's, I would agree with that. I mean, we're already seeing a lot of activity in that space. I guess it was within the last 2 weeks, a lot of big publications about the reserves, or the anticipated reserves in the Smackover formation, and that covers 3 states.
Right.
So, very interested to see where that takes us as landmen, and helps in that all of the above energy transition kind of mentality. You certainly have the right players. I mean, Equinor is obviously investing a lot of money in it. They're a massive international company. Exxon's so active there as well, and they have the technology in place and established to be able to deliver on that. Other things that I think about that maybe are a little further behind is geothermal, but the concept there that the technology and the mechanism and means to develop a geothermal project is largely based off of the technology that's been established and perfected and refined in the oil and gas business. Now, you think of companies like Sage Geosystems, they're taking essentially, plucking the best and brightest that they can get from the oil and gas business and using that engineering capacity, that technological capacity, all the innovation that's gotten us to where we are today in the oil and gas space, and applying it to geothermal.
Right.
I think we can advance that. I think there's a lot of promise for that. I think if I talk to, as I talk to people in the land business and the oil and gas business, my counterparts in land, in on the in-house side of things, they all say geothermal makes a lot of sense. Everybody's is behind that concept. Um, so I'd be interested to see. It's really exciting to see 10 years from now how many of our clients as service providers are going to be drilling oil and gas wells, and then also have geothermal projects in the mix. I think I think we all are optimistic that that could be something that could also be thrown into the mix for us all as well, and um, provide electricity generation in parts of the country that aren't oil and gas centric. I think one of the things I've talked to my team about a lot is, we all came up in Texas or Oklahoma or heavy oil and gas producing regions, but we better be prepared to do this same work in other parts of the country that are going to be have a bigger slice of the pie in alternative energy development, whether it's geothermal or whatever the case may be. So I think the big takeaway is, it's going to be a ride, and you better try to get on the front row seat so that you can be proactive about where you position yourself as a landman or an energy professional. And it's exciting times, and I think we're all optimistic for where it's going to take us and what it can maybe provide for the country. And from an economic standpoint, from a energy independent standpoint, I think all those things are positives that anybody can get behind. And hey, if the environment's better for it, great. Who wouldn't get behind that?